the night I expected celebration for their first grandchild. My husband sat silent as his mother kicked me out of the house I helped pay for. I was visibly pregnant. My bags were packed like they planned it. I cried. But I signed. They thought it was over. What they did not know was I had already met my lawyer, and my lawyer is not the type his mother can buy. My name is Mila Reyes. The air in the Cole family dining room was thick enough to choke on, heavy with the scent of expensive pot roast and unspoken agendas. It was supposed to be a celebration. That is what the family group chat had declared, punctuated by champagne bottle emojis from my sister-in-law. Dinner Saturday, 7 p.m, celebrating the first Cole grandchild. Vivian, my mother-in-law, had insisted on hosting. I was just over 5 months pregnant. The curve of my belly, once a private secret, was now the undeniable center of gravity in the room, pushing noticeably against the navy blue silk dress Ethan had said he liked. I was still wearing his ring. The heavy platinum band felt cold, a manacle I had once mistaken for a promise. We were in their house. The grand suburban fortress in Riverton that Vivian never let us forget was their house. We had not even finished the appetizers. The shrimp cocktail sat half-eaten. Vivian Cole, matriarch and chief executive officer of my husband's life, placed her knife and fork down with a delicate, final click. She cleared her throat, a sound that always managed to command absolute silence. From a leather portfolio by her chair, she slid a thick stack of papers across the polished mahogany table. They were bound in a neat, ominous blue cover. The stack stopped right in front of my plate, nudging the bread roll I had not touched. "Mila," she said, her voice the same smooth, modulated tone she used for board meetings and charity auctions. "Before the main course, we feel it is time to finalize some things." I looked at the top page. The type was small and dense. Agreement of temporary asset separation and residence. My blood did not just run cold. It froze. My breath caught, a sharp, painful hitch in my chest. "I do not understand," I said, though the clinical black letters were making a very clear, brutal point. "It is quite simple," Vivian said, folding her hands over her pearls. "This house, as you know, is the property of the Cole Family Trust. As you are now, in a transitional phase, we need to secure the family assets. This agreement clarifies that you will be moving out." The room tilted. I tore my eyes from the document and found my husband. Ethan. He was sitting right next to his mother, so close their shoulders were touching. He was staring at the floral centerpiece, a grotesque spray of lilies, as if it held the secrets to the universe. He would not meet my eyes. He said nothing. This was the first shock, the real one, the silence, the absolute, suffocating vacuum where my husband, my partner, the father of the child inside me, was supposed to be. He had driven me here. He had kissed me before we left our house. He had held my hand just this morning, pressing it to my belly to feel the faint flutter, and talked about nursery colors. Now, he was just a statue in an expensive cashmere sweater. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice cracked. It was pathetic, and I hated it. He flinched, a tiny, guilty spasm, but he did not look up. Vivian answered for him, her voice sharp. "Ethan agrees. Mila, this is a family decision. He understands the necessity of protecting the line." I looked around the table, desperate for one friendly face. There were none. Ethan's younger cousin, Caden, who always acted like my best friend when he wanted tech advice, had his phone angled just slightly too low on his lap. The screen was dark, but his thumb was poised over the side volume button. He was filming this. I could see the reflection of the chandelier in his dead screen. Across the table, Ethan's sister-in-law, Sarah, put a hand to her chest in a flawless pantomime of distress. "Oh, Mila," she breathed, her eyes wide. "This is just awful." But her eyes were bright, glittering with the thrill of it. They knew. They had all known. The group chat, the expensive roast beef, the celebratory wine they had poured for themselves while I drank water, It was all stage dressing for an execution. This was not a dinner. This was an audience. You will be leaving tonight, Vivian continued, her tone implying she was discussing the weather. A car was already arranged. She said, I live here, I said, my voice shaking, though I was trying to grip it. This is our home. I am carrying your son's child. I am 5 months pregnant. You did not sign the prenuptial agreement when we asked, dear, Vivian said. Taking a sip of her wine, she examined the glass, as if finding fault with it. You insisted on having your lawyer review it, and it became complicated. So now we must clarify things. We cannot, and will not, risk Cole assets being walked away with. My assets. As if the baby inside me was just another line item in their trust fund. As if the last 3 years of my life, the salary I earned at the Harborline Community Development Agency, the checks I wrote for the utilities, the groceries, the homeowners association fees, meant nothing. As if my contribution was invisible. My hands were shaking. I could feel the hot, humiliating sting of tears blurring my vision, the redness creeping up my neck. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip this billion-ton table. I wanted to ask Ethan if this is what he promised when he said, in sickness and in health, but I did not. I looked at Ethan one last time, a final appeal. Say something, I pleaded. It was not even a whisper, just a movement of my lips. He finally looked at me. His eyes were not angry. They were not sad. They were empty, hollowed out. Mila, Mom knows what is best. It is just for now. It is just for now. That was it. The snap. The sound of the last thread connecting me to him, to this family, breaking. The anger and the adrenaline washed away the tears, leaving behind something cold, hard, and terrifyingly clear. They were all watching me, waiting for the hysterics. They wanted the drama. Caden was probably hoping for a better shot, maybe even angling for a close-up of the Latina wife losing her mind. I picked up the sleek, heavy silver pen Vivian had so thoughtfully provided. The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the wine fridge. They expected me to fight, to beg, to throw the pen. I read the line. Mila Reyes agrees to vacate the premises at 1800 Willow Lane. I signed my name. The signature was firm. Not a tremor in it. Vivian actually blinked, a rare crack in her Botoxed composure. Ethan looked confused. This was not in their script. The victim was not playing her part. I pushed the papers back toward her, the pen resting neatly on top. My hand was steady now. Thank you, Vivian, I said. My voice was dry, almost bored, scraped clean of emotion. I stood up, pushing my chair back slowly. The sound echoed on the hardwood floors. I think you will need to see this later, I added, tapping the cover of the agreement. It was a vague statement, a bluff, a hook thrown into the dark, but it was all I had, a tiny seed of defiance planted for later. Vivian narrowed her eyes. She did not like things she could not control, and I had just become uncontrollable. I walked to the front hall. I did not run, I walked, and there they were, just as I knew they would be. My suitcases, 2 large ones, and a carry-on, packed and waiting by the door. They had gone into my closet, into our bedroom, into my space, and packed for me. They had decided which parts of my life I was allowed to keep. A sudden, sharp image flashed in my mind. Vivian's hands on my things. I put one hand on my belly, a protective, instinctive gesture. My son, my child, not theirs. I put my other hand on the handle of my largest bag. The wheels rattled loudly on the marble foyer. I did not look back. I pulled my bags, one by one, out of the heavy oak front door. The expensive gas lamps Vivian had installed, casting sickly yellow shadows on the manicured stone walkway. I stood there for a moment in the cool night air, the door clicking shut behind me with the finality of a cell block. I was on the curb of the house I had helped pay for, and I was, for the first time in 3 years, completely alone. They thought I would disappear. They thought I would crawl back to my small apartment, beaten, pregnant, and poor. They thought, with that signature, that it was over, to understand why I let them do it, why I let them kick me out while I was pregnant with their own blood, why I signed that insulting piece of paper without screaming. You have to understand that this was not the end. This was the opening move, and to see why I was so prepared, you have to go back. You have to go back to the beginning. Back to the sunny afternoon when I thought I was stepping into a family that knew how to love. 3 years ago, my life was defined by chipped paint, stacks of housing applications, and the stubborn hope that I could make a difference. I worked at the Harborline Community Development Agency. It was not glamorous. My office was a cramped cubicle in a repurposed warehouse down by the old docks, and my days were spent fighting for people the rest of Riverton tried to ignore. I argued with landlords about heating, helped single moms navigate the endless paperwork for Section 8 vouchers, and spent hours on hold with city departments that never seemed to have the budget for anything that did not involve a ribbon-cutting ceremony. It was at one of those ribbon cuttings, or rather, a fundraiser to pay for one, that I met Ethan. It was a humid Tuesday evening in June, the kind where the air feels heavy enough to wear. The event was held in a renovated firehouse we were trying to convert into affordable artist lofts. I was exhausted, my feet aching in sensible heels I only wore when donors were around. I was standing by the lukewarm punch, trying to avoid a local councilman who wanted to talk about synergy, when a man in a perfectly tailored, yet somehow approachable, navy suit walked up. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else," he said, offering a small, genuine smile that did not quite reach his eyes, but in a way that seemed shy, not calculated. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, taking a sip of the overly sweet punch. "I am Mila. I handle the tenant advocacy side of this project." "Ethan," he said, extending a hand. "Ethan Cole. I am with Cole & Son Urban Crafts. We are the general contractors for the renovation." I knew the name. Cole & Son was a big deal in Riverton. Known for high-end condos and slick commercial spaces, they were not usually the type to bid on our scrappy little non-profit jobs. I braced myself for the usual condescending questions about how we managed to get anything done with our quaint budgets. But Ethan was different. He did not ask about budgets. He asked about the people. He asked me about Mrs. Gable in apartment 4B, who was worried the new windows would mean a rent hike, and about the Rodriguez family who needed a ground-floor unit for their disabled son. He listened, really listened, nodding as I talked passionately about the importance of preserving the community fabric, of not just building houses but keeping homes. "It is rare," he said after nearly an hour, ignoring the other industry bigwigs circling the room, "to meet someone who actually cares about the people inside the buildings more than the buildings themselves. My dad, he used to say, 'A house is just wood and nails until someone lives in it.' That got me. In a room full of people talking about square footage and return on investment, Ethan was talking about homes. He told me his father had passed away when he was a teenager, leaving his mother, Vivian, to take over a struggling construction firm in a man's world. He spoke of her with such reverence, describing how she had fought tooth and nail to save the company, turning it into the powerhouse it was today. I admired that. I admired a strong woman who built something from nothing. It made me think he valued strength in women, that he did not just see us as decorations. Our first date was not at some stuffy, overpriced restaurant. He met me after work, loosening his tie as he leaned against his sensible sedan. Not a flashy sports car, and we ended up getting tacos from a food truck parked near the river. We sat on a weathered bench, eating messy al pastor tacos with plastic forks, debating which local basketball team had a better shot at the playoffs this year. He did not check his phone once. He did not talk about his portfolio or his car. He talked about how he wanted to build things that lasted, not just things that sold. We dated for 10 months. It was the easiest, most natural thing in the world. He came to my nephew's chaotic birthday party in a cramped apartment and did not flinch when he got hit with a wayward slice of cake. He helped me paint my elderly neighbor's fence on a Saturday when he could have been golfing. We talked about the future, about kids. We both agreed we did not want to raise them in some sterile, gated community where they would never see the real world. We wanted them to have scraped knees and know their neighbors' names. He proposed on the rooftop of a small bar downtown. The city lights spread out below us like a messy, beautiful quilt. It was not a grand, public spectacle, just us, 2 gin and tonics, and a question that felt like the most certain thing in my life. "Mila," he said, his hands warm over mine. "I love how fierce you are. I love that you fight for people. Don't ever stop doing that. Okay? Even when we are married, you keep working at Harborline. You keep fighting. I want to be the man who supports that." I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. I thought I had found a unicorn, a successful man who did not want a trophy wife, who actually respected my gritty, unglamorous work. We had a small wedding, or at least, I wanted a small wedding. Vivian, in her first real act of overwhelming generosity, insisted on paying for most of it. "A Cole wedding must have certain standards," she had said, smiling that tight, perfect smile. At the time, I thought it was her way of welcoming me, of showing she accepted the girl from the wrong side of the tracks into her dynasty. The venue was grander than I would have chosen, the flowers more elaborate, but Ethan was there at the end of the aisle, looking at me with tears in his eyes, and that was all that mattered. I remember standing there, saying my vows, thinking about how lucky I was. I had a man who loved me for who I was, who supported my dreams, who came from a family led by a strong woman. I thought I was safe. I thought I was home. Looking back now, from the cold curb with my suitcases, that memory is not warm. It is a knife twisting in my gut, because the man who said he loved my fierceness was the same man who sat silent while his mother tried to crush it. The man who said he did not want a gated community for our kids was letting his mother gatekeep our own home. The foundation I thought we were building on was just sand, and the tide had just come in. After the wedding, the high of the small, perfect ceremony faded quickly, replaced by the reality of logistics. "You two should move into the Willow Lane house," Vivian had announced at a brunch, not asked. "It is just sitting empty, and it is the perfect place to start a family, a Cole family home." It was a beautiful 2-story colonial in the best part of Riverton, all white brick and dark green shutters, with a lawn so perfect it looked like a carpet. But from the moment we carried the first box over the threshold, it did not feel like ours. "The deed," Ethan explained, "was held in the Cole Family Trust. It is just a legal thing, baby," he said, kissing my forehead as I looked at the vast, empty living room. "For tax purposes, Mom set it up ages ago. One day, it will all be ours. It is ours." But it was not. It was Vivian's. She had her own key. Of course, she would let herself in on a Tuesday morning while I was making coffee in my robe, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. "Just checking the alarm panel." "Dear," she would call out, already sorting through our mail on the kitchen island, "this is a significant family asset. We must maintain it." The rules were unwritten, but they were absolute. When I found a comfortable, modern sofa I loved, Vivian vetoed it with a gentle smile. "Oh, Mila, that is very you, but it simply does not fit the character of the house. The trust has arrangements with a specific interior designer. They understand the Cole aesthetic. We will have something delivered next week." When the delivery came, it was a stiff, ornate beige sofa that looked like it belonged in a museum. I hated it. Ethan said it was classic. Then came the security system. Vivian insisted on it. "For your safety," she said, but the installation included more than just door sensors. There were cameras, small, discreet domes in the corners of the kitchen, the living room, the foyer. "Standard procedure for an insured property of this value," she explained, waving off my discomfort. "It is purely for insurance liability." It did not feel like insurance. It felt like I was being watched. I tried to carve out a space for myself. I still had my job at Harborline, a job I loved, and I needed a proper home office. I picked out a small, bright room upstairs. I was thinking of painting this a light blue, I told Ethan, and putting in some built-in bookshelves. When Vivian heard, she placed a cool hand on my arm. Mila, dear, you have so much on your plate. Just settling in. And soon. Well, she would glance meaningfully at my flat stomach. You should be focusing on preparing for a family, not worrying about that stressful job. Perhaps it is time to think about your priorities. Every Sunday, we had dinner at her main house, the true coal fortress across town, and every single Sunday, the conversation was the same. It revolved around one topic, the first grandchild. It was not subtle. It was a relentless, polite pressure. Vivian would talk about the nursery wing, about trust funds, about the importance of the Cole name continuing. I began to feel less like a person and more like a container. My future, my body, felt like it was no longer my own. It was a piece of community property, something they were all waiting on, like a quarterly report. Ethan, the man who had loved my passion for community advocacy, began to change. His voice started to echo hers. When I questioned why our joint bank account was linked to the main Cole family office account, he got defensive. Mila, Mom knows finances better than we do. She saved this family. She saved the company. She knows how to make money work for us. Just let her handle it. But it is my money too. Ethan, my salary goes in there. And it is being protected, he said, his tone final. A clear imitation of his mother's. The cracks were no longer small. They were starting to split wide open. I was working on my laptop one evening when a forwarded email popped up the homeowner's insurance policy renewal for our house. I scanned the addressees. The primary recipient was Vivian Cole. Ethan was copied. I was not listed anywhere. I was not even a resident on the paperwork for the house I lived in, the house my paycheck helped maintain. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I tried to ask Ethan about it, casually, as we were getting ready for bed. Hey, I saw the insurance email. It is weird. My name is not on it, right? Since I live here. He sighed, already tired of the conversation. It is just paperwork. Mila, the house is in the trust. You are my wife. It is the same thing. It is not the same thing, I pushed, my voice a little tighter than I intended. I would just like to see the trust documents, or the deed, just so I understand how it all works. He turned away, pulling the covers up. Why, it sounds like you do not trust me. You do not trust my family. I tried a different approach. I asked Vivian directly, catching her at one of the Sunday dinners, forcing a light, breezy tone. Vivian, Ethan and I were talking, and I was just curious about the trust. I work with housing documents all the time at Harborline. I am just a nerd for that stuff. I would love to see how it is structured. She laughed. It was a light, tinkling sound that sent a shiver down my spine. She placed her hand over mine on the table, her rings cold against my skin. Oh, Mila, darling, you are family now. You are in the house. You do not ever need to worry your pretty head about boring paperwork. That is what Ethan and I are for. You just focus on being happy. She squeezed my hand. No one is ever going to kick you out. The smile was bright, but her eyes were like steel. It was not a reassurance. It was a warning. The first real battle, the one that showed me exactly where I stood, was not about money. It was about a name. We were having dinner. Just the three of us, in my beige, camera-monitored living room. The topic of children, as always, came up. I was thinking, I said, trying to sound casual. If we have a baby, it would be nice to honor both our families, maybe hyphenate the last name. Reyes Cole. Vivian, who had been mid-bite, set her fork down very, very slowly. The room went absolutely still. Absolutely not, she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of all its polite warmth. That is not a discussion. The child will be a Cole. This family has a legacy. We do not dilute it. I was stunned by the venom. I looked at Ethan, my husband, my partner. This was his cue. This was where he was supposed to step in, to defend me, to defend us. He stared at his plate. He rearranged his peas with his fork. "Ethan," I prompted, my voice small. He cleared his throat. "Mila, honey, Mom is right. It is the family name. It is simpler. It is just how it is done." I looked from his downcast face to his mother's triumphant one, and I finally understood. I was not his partner. I was an accessory. I was not his wife. Not in any way that mattered. I was a tenant in his mother's house, approved only as long as I followed the rules and produced the required heir. This was the moment I realized that I was not married to Ethan. I was married to the Cole Family Trust, and in this house, my husband belonged to his mother first. He was her son, her employee, her asset, and me, I was just a visitor. The positive test sat on the edge of the sink, a stark blue plus sign that changed everything. My hands trembled as I held it. For a single, crystal-clear moment, all the tension with Vivian, all the anxiety about the house, evaporated. There was just joy, pure and uncomplicated. I waited for Ethan to come home, my heart thumping a giddy rhythm against my ribs. I set the tiny test on his pillow, my cheeks aching from smiling. He walked in, exhausted from a long day, and saw it. His face lit up in a way I had not seen since our first few months of dating. He dropped his briefcase, grabbed me, and spun me around, his laughter filling the beige, camera-filled room. "Is this real?" he kept asking, his hands cupping my face. "Are we? Oh my God, Mila, we are having a baby." It was perfect, for about 10 minutes. "I have to tell Mom," he said, pulling his phone from his pocket, his thumb already flying. My smile faltered. "Now can we not just have this for us? Just for one night?" "Are you kidding? She is going to be ecstatic. She has been waiting for this for years," he said, already hitting the call button before I could protest again. "Mom, you sitting down. We have news." I watched him pace the room, his voice bright with excitement, explaining everything to his mother. My joy did not disappear, but it was suddenly crowded. It was no longer just our secret. It was a Cole family event. Vivian was over in less than 20 minutes, which was impressive considering she lived on the other side of Riverton. She swept in, not in her usual power suit, but in expensive-looking loungewear. Her eyes laser-focused on me. She did not hug me. She hugged Ethan. Then she put her hands on my stomach. Her hands were cold, even through my shirt. "Well," she said, a slow, proprietary smile spreading across her face. "It is about time, a Cole heir." From that moment, risk control mode was initiated. My pregnancy was not a personal journey. It was the incubation of a family asset, and Vivian was its new project manager. My first OB/GYN appointment was scheduled. Vivian's assistant made the call. "Dr. Allister is the best in Riverton," Vivian informed me. "He handles all the prominent families. We cannot have you going to some clinic, Mila." The morning sickness hit me like a truck. I spent the first few weeks surviving on crackers and ginger ale, the smell of coffee making me retch. The exhaustion was bone deep, a leaden weight I carried everywhere. It made fighting back impossible. Vivian's first decree came on a Saturday. She arrived with bags from a high-end maternity store, full of clothes in muted, expensive fabrics. "Now that you are pregnant, Mila, you absolutely must stop working," she announced, laying a cashmere tunic on the sofa. "The stress at that place, you work. It is not good for the baby. Harbor Line is a noble charity, dear, but it is full of stress and germs. Your priority is my grandchild." "Vivian, I am not quitting my job," I said, my voice weak but firm. The nausea was cresting, and I had to grip the back of a chair. "It is my career. I love it." "Career." She laughed, that light, tinkling laugh that meant I was being ridiculous. "You are a mother now, or you will be. That is your career. Ethan provides more than enough. Cole and Son provides. You do not need that little salary. It is not about the salary, I argued, feeling the familiar spike of anger. It is my work. I help people. You can help the baby, she countered smoothly. Besides, think of the risks. What if you fall? What if you catch something? No, it is not acceptable. This was a fight I knew I had to win, or I would lose the last piece of myself. Ethan, predictably, took the middle ground. Mom, she loves her job. Mila, maybe you can cut back for the baby's sake. We compromised. I would not quit, but I would request to work remotely from home for most of the week, effective immediately. My boss at Harborline, bless her, understood. Vivian was visibly displeased. She saw it not as a compromise, but as a failure of her authority. She did not like failure. About 2 weeks later, just as I was settling into a routine of remote work and surviving the first trimester, Vivian arrived for an unscheduled visit. She was in her full business armor, this time a sharp gray suit, hair pulled back, leather portfolio in hand. Mila, she said, sitting on the beige sofa that still felt alien to me. We need to discuss something important. She pulled out another set of bound documents, identical in their ominous blue cover to the ones I would see months later. Now that you have stopped contributing to the household in the same capacity, she began, her voice all business. I have not stopped, I interrupted, my hand instinctively going to my barely there bump. I am still working full-time. My salary is still being deposited. Remotely, she dismissed, as if that meant I was on vacation. Regardless, your situation has changed. Your priorities have changed. It is time we finalize the legal protections for the family. We should have done this before the wedding, but you were resistant. This is a post-nuptial agreement. She slid it across the coffee table. My heart was hammering. This is not about you and Ethan, she said, her voice softening into a practiced, reassuring tone. This is simply to protect the family assets, for the baby, to make sure the Cole legacy is secure, no matter what happens. I opened the document. My hands were shaking. I read through the dense legal language, my mind, trained to read housing contracts, picking out the key phrases, in the event of marital dissolution, waives any and all claims to real property held by the Cole Family Trust. Agrees to vacate residential property at 1800 Willow Lane within 48 hours. This says if we get divorced, I get nothing, I said, my voice flat. I get kicked out. Not nothing, Mila, she corrected patiently. Your personal effects, of course. This is just about the real estate, the trust property. It is to prevent complications. You understand. I am pregnant with Ethan's child, with your grandchild, and you are handing me divorce papers. I am handing you a common-sense legal document, she said, her eyes hardening. If you are not planning on divorcing him, then you have absolutely nothing to worry about. It is just a piece of paper. That night, I showed Ethan. I was sick, exhausted, and now terrified. She wants me to sign this, I whispered, holding it out. It says you can kick me out, even with the baby. He sighed, that long-suffering sound that had become his standard response to any conflict involving his mother. He took the papers and glanced at them, his eyes skating over the words. Mila, come on, he said, tossing the packet onto the kitchen counter. It is just Mom being Mom. She is a businesswoman. She thinks in contracts. It is just to make her happy. We are not getting divorced. We are having a baby. Just sign it. Who cares? It does not mean anything. That was the moment. The second great shock. That sentence would echo in my head for months. A perfect summation of his cowardice. Just sign it to make her happy. It means something to me, Ethan, I said, my voice rising. It means your mother sees me as a temporary risk, not as family. It means she is planning for my exit while I am pregnant. You are overreacting, he said, turning away. You are just hormonal. I started to fight back, using the only logic I had. The next time Vivian brought it up, I was ready. I have been thinking, Vivian, I said, forcing my voice to be calm. If this document is really about protecting the baby, about securing the legacy, then why does it only talk about kicking me out? Why does it not add me to the trust? If I am the mother of the heir, should I not be listed as a beneficiary, as a resident, as anything? Vivian's smile was thin. She was not used to being questioned this way. The trust is a very complex vehicle. Mila, it is not something we can just add people to. It is set up for blood relatives. My child will be my blood, I countered, and I am his mother. She let out a small, condescending sigh. Mila, your background is in helping the poor. It is very sweet, but you do not understand generational wealth. You do not understand what it takes to protect it. Reyes is a lovely name, I am sure, in your community, but you must understand that being a Cole, marrying into a family with a history, it comes with responsibilities, and this is one of them. It was the closest she had ever come to saying it out loud. You are not one of us. You are just the vessel. I was exhausted. I was sick every morning. I was growing a human being. And I was spending every ounce of my remaining energy fighting a two-front war, one against Vivian's legal machinations, and one against my husband's total, crushing indifference. I could not fight anymore, but I could not sign. So I stalled. My lawyer is reviewing it, I lied one week. I have been so sick, I have not had a chance to even read it properly, I said the next. The doctor said I need to avoid all stress, so I am putting all legal matters on hold. I said the week after that, holding up a printout about blood pressure. Each excuse made her eyes colder, her smile tighter. My refusal to sign, my refusal to be a good girl and make her happy, was more than an annoyance. It was an act of defiance. It was a thorn in her side. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that Vivian Cole did not tolerate thorns. If she could not get me to sign away my rights, she would find another way to get me out of her house. The postnup had failed, so a new, more brutal plan was already forming behind those cold, calculating eyes. The nausea of the first trimester finally receded, replaced by a dull, constant exhaustion and the undeniable swell of my belly. I was almost 4 months pregnant. The nesting instinct, the one everyone talks about, was hitting me with the force of a hormonal tidal wave. I wanted to buy a crib. It was a simple, normal desire, but in the Cole household, nothing was simple. I knew Vivian had her eye on some monstrously ornate antique she had pointed out in a catalog. Something that looked like it belonged in a gothic horror movie. I wanted something clean, modern, and safe. Something I chose. I had my own savings account from before the marriage. A rainy day fund I had meticulously built from my Harborline paychecks, but I had agreed to move my direct deposit to our joint account after the wedding. It just makes sense, baby, Ethan had said. One pot for our life. I decided I would transfer some of my own money back into my savings to buy the crib I wanted, without having to justify the purchase to a committee. I logged into our joint banking app on my phone, ready to make the simple transfer. I stared at the screen. The balance was wrong. It was not just wrong. It was shockingly low, thousands of dollars lower than it should have been. My last paycheck from Harborline had deposited just 3 days ago. Ethan's salary was substantial. We paid the utilities, the cars, the groceries. But this number did not add up. It was an amputation. My heart started a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. This was not a banking error. This was an audit. I grabbed my laptop, my hands shaking just slightly. I needed the full statements, the detailed transaction history. I logged in, and the screen filled with lines of withdrawals I did not recognize. It was not death by 1,000 cuts. It was large, systematic transfers. Transfer. Cole H. F. Transfer. Cole H. F. Transfer. Cole H. F. There were dozens of them, stretching back months, happening like clockwork a day after my paycheck landed. Cole Heritage Fund. I had heard Vivian mention it at those Sunday dinners, always in the context of legacy and long-term growth. I had assumed it was her personal investment fund, the Dragon's Hoard. I had never, not once, agreed to contribute to it. I clicked on my email, my mind racing. I typed invoice into the search bar for our shared account. Nothing. I tried again, this time searching the shared family cloud drive, the one Vivian insisted we use for family photos. I found it, a folder labeled Willow Lane, Household. It was not family photos. It was a meticulous record of every dollar spent on the property, and every single invoice was approved not by me, not by Ethan, but by her. Landscaping services, $800, approved by VC, sprinkler system repair, $550, approved by VC, quarterly pest control, $300, approved by VC, interior design, consultation living room, $2,500, approved by VC. My blood went ice cold. That was the bill for the beige sofa I hated. That was the bill for the perfect, manicured lawn I never sat on. She was using our joint account my money as her personal maintenance fund for her trust property. I felt the baby kick, a tiny, fluttering protest, as if he knew. I was paying rent. I was an unwitting tenant, funding the upkeep of the very house she held over my head. I did not scream when Ethan got home. I was past that. The cold clarity that had saved me that night on the curb months later. Its first seeds were planted in that moment, staring at approved by VC. I waited until he had poured his whiskey. I turned the laptop toward him on the kitchen island, the camera staring blankly at the ceiling above us. Ethan, what is the Cole Heritage Fund? I asked. My voice was quiet, dangerously level. He glanced at the screen, then looked away, swirling the ice in his glass. Oh, that. It is just some family accounting thing. Mom streamlined some of the old trust debts through it. It is for taxes. Do not worry about it. Do not worry about it. I pushed the laptop closer. My paycheck goes into this account, and thousands of dollars of it are being moved into her fund every month, without my permission. She is using our money to pay for her house. He sighed, that long, put-upon sigh, the one that meant I was being difficult. Mila, it is our money. It all goes into the same pot. Mom is just managing the pot. She knows this stuff. She is building our equity. She is making sure this house, our house, is taken care of. You are just stressed. So my salary from Harbor Line, I said, my voice dropping. The money I earn, it is just part of the pot for her to use as she sees fit. I do not get a vote. You are getting hysterical, he said, turning away. It is not a vote. It is the family. Mom is just... She is streamlining the debt so the house can belong to us one day. The conversation was over. He had delivered the party line. I was a contributor, not a partner. I needed to feel sane. So I went into the Harbor Line office the next day. I needed to be around people who saw me as Mila Reyes, the competent program director, not just the pregnant vessel. My friend Jordan, who ran our community outreach, took one look at my face and dragged me into the tiny break room. Okay, she said, handing me a cup of tea. Spill, you look like you just found a body. I hesitated. I could not tell her everything. It is just money stuff, I hedged. With Ethan's family, I feel like I'm being financially managed, like my money is not my own. Jordan's normally cheerful face went still. What family? She asked. Ethan Cole and Sun Urban Crafts. She put her tea down. Mila, oh, God, be careful. What do you mean? I used to intern at the legal aid clinic downtown. Remember, before I got this job. About 5, maybe 6 years ago. I helped process intake. A woman came in. She was a mess. She was divorcing a Cole. Not Ethan. I think it was a cousin. She claimed the exact same thing. My hands went cold. What do you mean? The same thing? She said they commingled all her assets, her salary, even a small inheritance. It all went into some family trust, and when she tried to leave, they told her she had no rights to it, that it was all family assets now. She said they locked her out of the accounts, and she had no paper trail. Last I heard, she settled for almost nothing. They have a playbook. Mila, this is what they do. A playbook. That night, I did not sleep. I waited until Ethan was snoring, that low rumble that used to comfort me. I slipped out of bed and went to the office. I sat in the dark, the laptop's glow lighting my face. I tried to log into the mortgage lender's website for the Willow Lane house. I knew the lender from the insurance forms I was not supposed to see. I found an old statement. I tried to use Ethan's login information. Access denied. I tried the forgot password function. Please enter the email address associated with this account. I typed in Ethan's personal email. Email address not found. I typed in my email, just in case. Email address not found. On a cold, sick hunch, I typed in Vivian Colian-son. Com. Password reset instructions have been sent. My breath hitched. She had changed it. The mortgage, the primary financial obligation for the house, was controlled by his mother's email account. Then I tried to log into the Cole Family Trust portal itself. Ethan had given me view-only access when we first moved in, so I could see the property documents. I typed in my username and password. User account not recognized. Your access rights have been revoked. I was locked out. I sat there in the dark for a long time. They were building a wall around me, brick by brick. They were stalling my post-nup refusal while systematically erasing me financially. Ethan came home late the following Friday. It was past 11. He had been stuck at the site, he claimed. He leaned down to kiss me, and I turned my head. So his lips met my cheek. I smelled it instantly. It was not alcohol. It was not the sawdust and sweat of a construction site. It was gardenias, his mother's perfume, that heavy, cloying, expensive scent that permeated her house, her car, her entire life. He had not been at a site. He had been at her house, for hours. He did not smell like a husband. He smelled like a co-conspirator. The pieces snapped into place, hard and sharp. I saw the night of the celebration dinner. I saw the blue-bound papers. I saw the suitcases by the door. They were not just planning. The plan was already in motion. I understood then. I could not win this by fighting Ethan. He was not my husband. He was their soldier. I could not win by appealing to Vivian's heart, because she did not have one. If I yelled, I was the hysterical pregnant Latina. If I cried, I was unstable. They would use my hormones, my heritage, my love for my unborn child, all against me. My work at Harborline had taught me one thing: you cannot reason with a system designed to exploit you. You cannot win by playing by their rules. I was 5 months pregnant. I was trapped in their house, my money flowing into their accounts, my name disappearing from the paperwork. But I was not weak, and I was not stupid. I went back to our bedroom, slipping in beside the man who smelled of betrayal. I pretended to be asleep, and in the dark, on my phone, under the covers, I opened a private browsing window. I did not search for nursery furniture. I typed, Best Family Law Attorney, Riverton. The search results for Best Family Law Attorney, Riverton, were a wall of smiling, generic faces. But one name, Camille Hart, appeared in the super lawyers list and had a string of reviews that all used the same words: shark, brilliant, ruthless, and saved me. Her website was stark. No pictures of happy families, just her name, her credentials, and a contact form. Her office was on the 32nd floor of a steel and glass tower downtown. The lobby was not filled with mahogany and oil paintings like the Cole offices. It was all white marble, brushed steel, and uncomfortable modern art. It smelled faintly of expensive, citrus-based cleaning products. The receptionist was crisp, efficient, and did not smile. It was perfect. Camille Hart herself was exactly as I had pictured. She was probably in her early 40s, with a sharp geometric blonde haircut that looked like it cost a fortune to maintain. She wore a severe, impeccably tailored black dress, a single, modern silver necklace, and a watch that probably cost more than my first car. She did not waste time with pleasantries. "Ms. Reyes," she said, not rising as I was shown in. She motioned to the chair opposite her vast, empty desk. "You have 30 minutes for this consultation. Your time is on the clock. Start from the beginning, and do not waste time telling me how you feel. Tell me what they did." Her directness was like a splash of cold water. It cut through the fog of pregnancy hormones and panic. I sat down, my hands clutching the small folder I had brought. "My husband's family is trying to erase me," I said, and then I told her everything. The words poured out, but I kept them factual, just as she had requested. The Willow Lane house in the Cole Family Trust, my name not on the deed, not on the insurance, the joint account, the Cole Heritage Fund, and the systematic transfers, the invoices approved by VC, the cameras, the failed post-nup agreement she tried to force on me, my pregnancy, the constant, suffocating control, the perfume. Camille listened without interrupting. She did not take notes. Her eyes, a very pale, intelligent blue, never left my face. It was the most unnerving and most reassuring attention I had ever received. When I finished, breathless, my story hanging in the sterile air between us, she was silent for a full 10 seconds. "Okay," she said, her voice flat. "Standard procedure for a dynastic wealth protection scheme. They are papering you out. They are building a case, brick by brick, that you are a transient, non-contributing party. The failed postnup was their first attempt. Your refusal means they are now moving to Phase 2 involuntary removal. So, they can kick me out," I whispered, the fear I had been holding back finally cracking my voice. Camille leaned forward, steepling her fingers on the empty desk. "Let me ask you the only question that matters right now. Ms. Reyes, do you want to escape this quietly, with as little fuss as possible, or do you want to make them remember your name for the rest of their lives?" I looked down at my own hands, resting on the new, pronounced curve of my belly. I thought of Vivian's smirk. I thought of Ethan's empty eyes. I thought of the gardenia perfume. "I want my child to be safe," I said, my voice low but fierce. "I want what I am owed, and, yes, I want them to remember me." A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of Camille's mouth. "Good. That makes my job easier, because quietly is no longer an option. You are pregnant. You are their problem. They are not going to let you walk away with a simple, amicable settlement. They are going to try to crush you. So what do I do? Right now, you do nothing," she said, and my face must have fallen, because she held up a hand. "You do nothing to them. You do not change your behavior. You do not confront Vivian. You do not cry to Ethan. You go home, and you play the part of the tired, slightly hormonal, compliant pregnant wife. You let your mother-in-law believe she has you exactly where she wants you. While she what? Steals the rest of my money, locks me out. While she builds our case for us," Camille corrected, "this is what you are going to do for me. You are going to become the best evidence gatherer I have ever had. Every single email from Vivian. Forward it to a new, private email account she cannot access. Every text message. Screenshot it and back it up to a cloud drive. Every strange financial transfer. Download the statement. You mentioned a colleague, the one who told you about the other lawsuit. Jordan, at Harborline. See if Jordan can, very discreetly, find the name of that other woman. It establishes a pattern of behavior. My forensic accountant, Ben, will have a field day with this Cole Heritage Fund. He will trace every single cent of your salary from Harborline into that fund. We are going to create a perfect, undeniable paper trail that proves you were a significant financial contributor to that household." She leaned back, her tone shifting from instruction to strategy. "Here is what is going to happen next. Ms. Reyes, they are going to try to evict you. That postnup was the legal way. You refused. So now, they will do it the family way. They will manufacture a crisis. They will claim you are unstable, that you are a danger, that you are, I do not know, spending money wildly, and they will, at some point, try to physically remove you from the premises. My blood ran cold. They would not. I am pregnant. That is why they will, Camille said, her voice sharp. They want you out before that baby is born and has established residency. They want to control the narrative. They want to control the birth certificate. This is what you are going to do. You are going to let them. I stared at her. Let them kick me out onto the street. Yes, and when they do, she said, you are going to make sure your phone is recording. Video, if possible. Audio, at a minimum. You will get them, on tape, telling you a 5, 6, 7-month pregnant woman to leave your primary residence. You will capture them admitting the house is theirs, not yours. You will not fight. You will not scream. You will cry. If you feel like it, you will be the perfect victim, and you will bring me that recording. She let the plan sink in. It was terrifying. It was brilliant. But what happens then? I will be homeless. For about 24 hours, Camille said flatly. The moment you have that recording, you will send it to me. I will have an emergency motion for occupancy filed with the family court by 9 a.m. The next morning, I will attach the video. I will attach the financial statements from Ben showing your salary being diverted. I will attach every single text message from Vivian. And I will explain to a judge, she continued, her voice like ice, that the wealthy and powerful Cole family has just made their pregnant daughter-in-law homeless in an illegal eviction, in a transparent attempt to subvert her marital property rights. And then I will ask for an emergency order not only to put you back in that house, but to grant you exclusive occupancy and to freeze every single asset in that trust until we have a full accounting. She paused. Judges, Ms. Reyes, do not like it when rich people throw pregnant women out on the street. Your vulnerability. The fact that you are pregnant, that you are tired, that you are scared in a courtroom, that is not your weakness, that is your armor, and we are going to use it. I sat back, the breath leaving my body in a long, shaky exhale. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach. But it was no longer just fear. It was something else. It was cold, hard, and it was pointing in one direction. Do not change your routine, Camille said. Standing up, it was a clear dismissal. Go to your doctor's appointments. Send the family the ultrasound photos. Be the perfect, sweet, slightly too common daughter-in-law they think you are. Let them believe you are stupid. Let them believe you are weak. Let them get comfortable. I stood, my legs feeling stronger than when I had walked in. Their arrogance, Camille said, walking me to the door, is the weapon they are handing you. Do not be afraid to use it. I walked out of the steel and glass tower into the bright, noisy downtown afternoon. The city felt different. It was no longer a place I was just surviving in. It was a battlefield, and for the first time since I had seen that blue plus sign, I was not alone. I had a plan. I had a weapon. I walked back into the Willow Lane house feeling like I was infiltrating enemy territory. My keys felt strange in my hand, the click of the lock echoing in the camera-monitored foyer. I was no longer a resident. I was an operative. The performance began immediately. I had to undo weeks of stalling and defiance. I found Vivian in the kitchen, predictably, reviewing fabric swatches for the nursery. The air was thick with her gardenia perfume. Vivian, I said, my voice intentionally weary. I let my shoulders slump. I put a hand on my lower back, a gesture of pregnancy-induced fatigue that I knew she would interpret as weakness. She looked up, her eyes sharp, analytical. I think you are right, I said, forcing a small, defeated sigh. About the postnup, I have been so stressed. And I think it is just making things worse. It is not good for the baby. Vivian's expression did not change, but a new stillness came over her. She was listening, I am just going to sign it. I lied. I will have my lawyer do a final review, just for my own peace of mind. But I am tired of fighting. I just want to focus on our son. I made sure to say our son, to remind her of my value as an incubator. A slow, satisfied smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a predator that had just successfully cornered its prey. "That is very wise, Mila," she said, her voice dripping with false empathy. "I knew you would see reason. It is for the best, for the whole family." Phase 1 was complete. I had just told the executioner I was ready to lay my head on the block. From that day, I was the perfect daughter-in-law. I became a ghost in my own home. All my energy focused on two things: faking compliance and gathering evidence. My prenatal care became a strategic weapon. After my 20-week ultrasound, I came home with the grainy black and white photos. I scanned them, just as Camille had instructed. I did not just text the image to Ethan and Vivian. I attached it to a new email in the Cole family group thread, the same thread where Vivian had previously discussed the postnup, and I had confirmed my salary deposits. "Subject the baby," I wrote, adding a single smiley face. "He is perfect. Everything is healthy." I have also attached the invoice from Dr. Allister's office for the records, since it is a family-covered expense. I hit send. It was a digital breadcrumb, a time-stamped piece of evidence. I was actively, happily, and publicly parenting my child as a Cole, and I was submitting my expenses to the family that was, on paper, supporting me. Vivian, now certain of my submission, grew bolder. She decided it was time to move to the next phase of her own plan. "I have the most wonderful idea," she announced at our next silent, tense Sunday dinner. Ethan and I were barely speaking. His evenings spent later and later at the office, a location that always smelled of his mother's perfume. Now that the postnup is being settled, and the baby is on his way, we must have a proper baby welcoming dinner, a celebration, just the core family, next Saturday. A baby welcoming dinner. The name was so ridiculously benign, so suburban, that it could only be a lie. This was it. This was the night they were going to do it. The night they would celebrate me right out of the house. I nodded, smiling. "That sounds lovely. Vivian, what can I bring?" Ethan stared at his plate. He had stopped meeting my eyes entirely. Anytime I tried to talk to him about our finances, about our future, about anything other than the weather, he would hold up a hand. "Mila, please," he would say. The life drained from his voice. "Do not make Mom sad. She is just trying to protect us. Just let her handle it." He was no longer just a coward. He was a willing accomplice. He had chosen. I knew time was running out. I had to get the final piece of evidence. I waited until a Tuesday afternoon. Ethan was at the main office. Vivian was, according to the shared family calendar, in a meeting with her designers. The house was empty, except for me, my baby, and the cameras. I knew the camera in the upstairs hallway had a blind spot the doorway to Ethan's home office. I walked in, my heart hammering so hard I was afraid it would be audible on the security feed. His office was sterile, immaculate, just like Vivian's, but I knew Ethan. He was lazy about filing. I went to the gray metal cabinet by his desk. It was not locked. Inside, under C, I found it Cole Heritage Fund, LP, Agreement. I pulled the thick document. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone steady. I flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning for the appendix. There it was. Schedule a list of limited partners and capital contributions, and right under Vivian R. Cole, Managing Partner, was Ethan and Mila Reyes Cole Joint Account. It listed our joint account number as a primary source of funding, with mandatory quarterly capital calls authorized by V.C. It was not just her stealing, it was a contract I had never seen, moving my salary, my money, from our joint account into her personal fund. I photographed every single page. My thumb on the camera button was my only anchor in a world that had gone completely sideways. I put the file back, slid the drawer shut, and walked out. I did not breathe until I was back in my own bedroom. The door locked. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. I forwarded every single thing to my secret email address, and from there, to Camille. The photos of the partnership agreement, the emails from Vivian about my inappropriate desire to keep my name, the text messages from Ethan where he told me to just sign the papers. I forwarded everything. At 3:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Camille. It was not a reply. It was a file attachment. Final instructions. PDF. I opened it. The document was short, cold, and precise. 1. Do not resist. Physical resistance will be used against you. 2. Sign any document they give you. Do not read it. Do not argue. Sign it. Their legal confidence is our trap. 3. Record everything. Audio is essential. Video is better. Secure the file. 4. Leave. Take only your purse. Leave the packed bags. We will show they packed for you. 5. Go to the hotel. Call me from the new phone. The next day, I went to an electronics store in the neighboring town. I paid cash for a tiny solid-state hard drive and a prepaid burner phone. That night, I meticulously downloaded my entire digital life onto the drive, the bank statements, the emails, the photos of the contracts, the screenshots of the locked-out accounts, the audio file of Vivian telling me the house was only for blood relatives. On Friday, the day before the dinner, I called Jordan. "Emergency coffee?" I asked. We met at a crowded Starbucks miles from Riverton. She took one look at my face and the barely concealed panic in my eyes. "Mila, what is going on? You look terrified." "I am," I said, my voice low. I pushed a small, brightly colored greeting card across the table. "Jordan, I need you to do something for me. No questions. Please." She opened the card. Inside, taped to the paper, was the hard drive. "This is insurance," I whispered. "It is my entire life. It is everything they have done. Mila, Ethan's family, they are not good people. Jordan, they are trying to erase me. I think they are going to try to kick me out tomorrow night, while I'm pregnant." Jordan's jaw dropped. "What? They cannot do that." "They can, and they will," I said, my voice hardening. "This drive is my proof. I need you to keep it. If anything happens to me, if you do not hear from me by Sunday morning, 10 a.m., I need you to call the lawyer whose name is written on the back of this card, and I need you to send her the entire contents of this drive." I grabbed her hand. "One more thing. You know Ethan's cousin, Caden, the one who lives on his phone. He will be there. He films everything. If a video of me having a breakdown or being escorted out, if any video like that shows up online, I need you to upload this." I slid a second, tiny USB stick across the table. "It is just me, talking, telling my side. I need you to post it everywhere. Link it to Cole and Son. Link it to Vivian. Do not let them tell the story. Okay." Jordan looked from the drive to my face, her eyes wide with fear and anger. "Okay," she said, her voice firm. "10 Sunday, I will be ready." I drove back to the house on Willow Lane. I felt the baby kick, a strong, steady rhythm. I walked into the house, my house, and the smell of lemon polish and gardenias hit me. Vivian was already there, supervising the preparations for her party. She smiled at me. "Mila, just in time. I need your opinion on the flower arrangements." I smiled back, a perfect, hollow smile. "They look beautiful. Vivian, I cannot wait for tomorrow." She had no idea. None of them did. They had built the stage, written the script, and were sharpening the knife. They just did not know that I was no longer the victim. I was the director. The baby-welcoming dinner was, in classic Vivian style, suffocatingly elegant. The table was set for 8, with the good silver, the crystal that chimed if you breathed on it, and towering, funereal arrangements of white lilies, whose perfume mingled with the heavy scent of pot roast. The guests were the core family: Vivian, Ethan, his sister-in-law Sarah, her eyes bright with a spectator's hunger, Ethan's cousin Caden, and one new addition, Reverend Alistair, the Cole family's longtime pastor. His presence was a masterstroke of emotional terrorism. He was here to lend a sanctimonious seal of approval to whatever atrocity Vivian had planned, to frame it not as cruelty, but as a moral necessity. He smiled at me, a paternal, pitying look, as I sat down, the chair scraping loudly in the quiet room. "Mila, my dear," he said, his voice a rich baritone, "you are glowing. A true blessing." I just nodded, my mouth dry. I glanced toward the foyer, and my blood turned to ice. There they were, just as Camille had predicted, my suitcases. 2 large, black roller bags and my overnight duffel, lined up neatly by the front door like a grim welcome committee. They had done it. They had gone into my room, into our closet, and packed for me. The violation was so profound, so intimate, it took my breath away. They had touched my clothes, my underwear, my toiletries. They had curated the life I was allowed to take with me. The pot roast was served. The silence was thick, broken only by the clinking of silver against china. I could not eat. I could not even swallow. My stomach, which had been calm all day, was now a tight, cold knot. Vivian dabbed her lips with a linen napkin. She placed it by her plate. The show was beginning. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice projecting to every corner of the room. She looked at Reverend Alistair. "We are here to celebrate a new life, a new beginning, and beginnings sometimes require difficult, but necessary, transitions." She slid the blue-bound folder across the table, just as she had done in my nightmares. It stopped in front of my plate. "Mila," she said, her voice a grotesque parody of maternal concern. "We have all been so worried about you, the stress, the emotions of this pregnancy. It is clear you are not happy here." "I am not happy," I whispered, staring at the document. "It is an overwhelming house," she continued smoothly, steamrolling my words. "The responsibilities of being a Cole are significant. I feel, that it would be best for you, and for the baby, to have a calmer environment, a less demanding one." This was it. The script was even more insidious than I had imagined. She was framing this as a kindness. "So, from tonight," she declared, "you will be staying elsewhere. We have found a lovely, quiet, long-term stay hotel for you. It will give you time to yourself. And, of course, it will give us the space we need to properly prepare the nursery for the baby's arrival." I looked at Ethan. He was the only one I looked at. He was staring at the table, his hand resting on my belly, which was just inches from him at the table. He was rubbing it, a slow, unconscious circle, as if claiming the contents, but he would not look at me. His eyes were fixed on his water glass. He was touching my child, the Cole heir, while his mother simultaneously erased me, the mother. It was the most profound, complete betrayal I could have ever imagined. "You are kicking me out," I said, my voice shaking. I let it shake. Camille's voice was in my head. "Let them see you as a victim. Let them get comfortable." "We are giving you a soft landing, Mila," Vivian said, her eyes cold. And I saw him, Caden. His phone was on the table, propped up against the salt shaker. The screen was dark, but the red light of the recording was blinking, a tiny demonic eye. He was filming it all, for the family, for Vivian. To document my hysteria, I remembered Camille's instructions. Audio is essential, video is better. Get them to admit it. I took a shaky breath. I let a tear, a hot, genuine tear of rage and loss, spill over and run down my cheek. I looked directly at Vivian, my voice just loud enough to carry, to be caught by that microphone. "So, just to be clear," I said, my voice cracking perfectly, "you want me to sign this paper? You want me to leave my home right now while I am over 5 months pregnant with your son's child?" The room went dead silent. Even the Reverend looked uncomfortable. This was the moment. Vivian, full of pot roast and righteousness, did not even flinch. She saw my tears as surrender. She saw my question as the last gasp of a defeated woman. She looked at me, then at the Reverend, then back at me. Her power in the room absolute. "This is not your home, Mila," she said, her voice clear and cold, a death sentence delivered over dinner. "This is a coal house, and yes, you are leaving." That was it. That was the gold. The line that would hang her. I did not fight. I did not scream. I did not look at Ethan again. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen. I opened the blue folder to the last page. I did not read a single word. I just signed my name, Mila Reyes, on the line. The collective sigh in the room was almost comical. They had all been bracing for a Latina in a soap opera explosion. My quiet, trembling compliance was more unnerving to them than any fight could have been. I placed the pen down. I pushed the folder back toward Vivian. "Thank you," I whispered, which seemed to confuse her more than anything. I stood up slowly, my hand on my belly. I did not look at anyone. I walked from the dining room, through the foyer, and stopped in front of my packed bags. I looked at them. Then I looked back at the dining room table, where they were all frozen, watching me. "You packed for me," I said. It was not in question. It was a statement, an epitaph for my marriage. Then I put on my coat, picked up my purse, the only thing I was meant to take, and I walked out the front door. I did not slam it. I closed it softly behind me, the click of the lock echoing in the cold night air. I made it to my car before the shaking started. My whole body convulsed with it, a mixture of adrenaline, terror, and a wild, terrifying relief. I sat in the dark, my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, until my breathing evened out. My hands were steady when I put the key in the ignition. I did not drive to a hotel. I drove straight to Jordan's apartment complex across town, my burner phone in my purse, my real phone turned off. She was waiting for me, pacing in her living room. "Oh my God, Mila," she said, pulling me into a hug the second I was inside her door. "Did they do it?" "They did it," I said, my voice hollow. I pulled out my phone, the real one. I sat on her sofa. My fingers fumbled with the password. "Caden filmed everything." "That bastard," she hissed. "No," I said, finding the file I had been secretly recording myself. "He is an idiot. He gave me a second angle." I had my phone propped in my purse, aimed right at Vivian. The entire dinner. I had my own recording. I trimmed the file, my hands moving with practiced, cold efficiency. I needed the moment my question. Her answer. "This is a coal house. And yes, you are leaving." I attached it to an encrypted email, the one Camille had set up. Subject, "It is done." Body video attached. I hit send. The upload bar crawled. It felt like an hour. Finally, a blue checkmark. Sent. I slumped back on Jordan's sofa, the adrenaline draining out of me, leaving me feeling hollowed out, pregnant, and homeless. My real phone, which I had just turned back on to send the file, buzzed in my hand. It was a text from Ethan. "Mila, where are you?" "Mom is just worried. You are overreacting. Please do not make a big deal out of this." I stared at the words. "Do not make a big deal out of this." He had just sat there, touching my belly, while his mother made me homeless, and he was telling me not to make a big deal out of it. I did not reply. I blocked his number. A minute later, the burner phone, the one only Camille had the number for, buzzed on the coffee table. A new message. One word. Perfect. I spent that first night at Jordan's apartment, oscillating between a paralyzing numbness and a white-hot, frantic anger. I did not sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, one hand on my belly, feeling my son kick, a small, steady presence in the chaos. At 8:01 the next morning, the burner phone buzzed. It was Camille. Her voice was not comforting. It was a weapon. "It is filed," she said. No hello. I had a courier at the courthouse door at 8 a.m. sharp, Emergency motion for occupancy, with your video as Exhibit A. What? What happens now? I asked, my voice a dry croak. Now, we wait for the judge to read it, which they will. Quickly. The motion included your video, the one where Vivian so kindly admits to throwing you out because it is a coal house. I also attached your last 6 pay stubs from Harborline, the direct deposit records into the joint account, and a preliminary affidavit from Ben. The court is looking at a pregnant woman, illegally evicted, with clear financial contributions to the home. They will not let this sit. We will have a hearing date by noon. She was right. At 11:30 a.m., the phone buzzed again. We are on the docket, she said, but not for a simple occupancy hearing. The judge read Ben's initial report. He is displeased. He has set a full financial hearing, but we are not waiting for that. It is time to deploy the rest of the arsenal. An hour later, a new email arrived. It was from Ben, the forensic accountant Camille had mentioned. It was a 20-page report, but the summary on the first page said everything. He had traced my salary, every single paycheck from Harborline, from the moment it landed in our joint account. He had found the electronic sweep that occurred, like clockwork, 48 hours after each deposit, moving a precise percentage of my money directly into the Coal Heritage Fund. He had cross-referenced the fund's partnership documents I had photographed. My name was nowhere. I was an unlisted, non-beneficiary, involuntary investor. His conclusion, in cold black type, was, "This activity is not consistent with standard household bill paying. This is a deliberate and systematic reallocation of marital assets into an inaccessible trust controlled by a third party, Vivian Cole. This constitutes a clear-cut case of financial abuse within the marriage." I was not just being controlled, I was being liquidated. Camille called again, and I could almost hear the smile in her voice. It was a cold, sharp sound. They are sloppy. Mila, rich people are always sloppy because they have never, not once, been held accountable. Vivian thought she was a fortress, but she built her fortress on a swamp. What did you find? First, the house, the big bad Cole family trust property. It is not owned free and clear. They are mortgaged to the hilt. Cole and Son used it as collateral for a commercial expansion loan 3 years ago, and in that loan agreement, the bank lists Ethan Cole and spouse as the primary residents, kicking you out. A legal resident, without notice, in violation of state tenant laws. That, my dear, is a technical default on their multi-million-dollar loan. The bank would be very interested to learn that the property's occupancy has been forcibly altered. That is our first point of leverage. I was struggling to keep up. First this is the beautiful part, Camille said, her voice dropping with predatory glee. This is my favorite part. How do you think Cole and Son Urban Crafts affords all those shiny new trucks? They get massive tax incentives from the city, including a substantial tax break for providing executive housing for the last 2 years. Vivian Cole has filed paperwork with the IRS and the city, claiming the Willow Lane house as the primary residence of Ethan Cole and his wife, Mila Reyes Cole. That is you. The implication hit me. So, Camille said, when Vivian looked you in the eye, on camera, and said, "This is not your home," she was not just being a monster, she was committing tax fraud. She has just, for the entire world to see, admitted that the residency status she has been claiming for tax breaks is a lie. She either lied to the IRS, or she lied to you. Either way, she loses. That is point of leverage number 2, and it is the one that can bring her entire company down. I sat on Jordan's lumpy sofa, my head spinning. So, what does this mean? Do I just go to the hearing? No, Camille said sharply. We are not just trying to get you back into the house. Mila, that is a small, petty victory. We are not asking for you to be let back in. We are demanding you be bought out. You were not a tenant. You were an investor. My motion is going to be amended. We are no longer just asking for residency. We are asking the court to partition the trust, to freeze all of its assets, and to immediately separate and return your financial contributions, with damages and legal fees. You paid into that Cole Heritage Fund fine. We are going to take it." I was speechless. She was not just defending me, she was attacking them. "Now, for the best part," Camille said. The delivery. The summons. The papers. Normally, we would have a process server drop them at Vivian's office. It is clean. It is boring. But the Coles do not respect clean. They respect power. They respect public image. And we are going to hit them in both. She told me her scout had been tracking Vivian's public calendar. Tomorrow, at 10 a.m., Vivian Cole is hosting a special company and family briefing at the main Cole & Son headquarters. She has called in all her key managers and the extended family. She is going to get in front of the story. She is going to tell them how you had a sad breakdown, how you had to be gently moved for your own health. She is going to paint you as hysterical and unstable, and herself as the long-suffering matriarch. She is setting the stage to fire you in the court of public opinion. "Oh, God," I whispered, my stomach turning. "Which is exactly why we are going," Camille said. "What we are going to her office." "No, not her office. We are going to her meeting. We are not going to serve her papers in the hallway. Mila, we are not going to talk about her behind her back, in a courtroom, where she can hide behind her lawyers. We are going to walk right into that briefing, and you, my dear, are going to tell your story. You are going to tell it right to her face, right in front of the people whose respect she needs to survive. We are going to say it, and serve her, in the one place on earth she thinks she is safest." The plan was audacious. It was terrifying. It was perfect. That night, Jordan and I rehearsed. She set up 2 chairs in her living room, pretending they were the front of a boardroom. She stood in front of me, crossing her arms, doing her best icy Vivian impression. "Now, tell me, Mila," Jordan said, her voice dripping with mock condescension. "What are you doing here?" My hands were shaking. I started, I am here because you kicked me out, and that was wrong." "Nope," Jordan said, dropping character. "No, Camille is right. No emotion, just facts. Colder, harder. What are the 3 things Ben and Camille found? Say them." I took a deep breath. I stood up straighter, my hand resting on my belly, not for protection, but for balance. I looked at Jordan, but I pictured Vivian. "1," I said, my voice clearer. "My salary from Harborline was diverted into the Cole Heritage Fund without my consent, which is financial abuse." "Good," Jordan nodded. "Keep going." 2, Vivian Cole illegally evicted me from my primary residence, a residence she has been claiming for tax breaks for Cole & Son. And I have the video, the bank statements, and the contracts to prove it." Jordan smiled, a real, fierce smile. "That is the one," she said. "That is how you take down an empire." I went to bed, but I did not sleep. I just ran the lines. I was no longer a victim begging for entry. I was a plaintiff, with a stack of evidence, coming to collect. The main boardroom at Cole & Son Urban Crafts was exactly like Vivian Cole. Expensive, and designed to make you feel small. It was all dark mahogany, black leather, and a wall of glass that overlooked a gray industrial part of Riverton. The air was chilled to an uncomfortable 68 degrees. Vivian sat at the head of the long, polished table. Ethan was at her right hand, looking pale and gaunt, like a boy playing dress-up in his father's suit. Around the table were the people who mattered, the senior managers of the company, the ones who handled finance and legal, and the key family members, including Caden and Sarah, who were looking at their phones with smug, expectant expressions. We were late, on purpose. Just as Vivian cleared her throat to begin her prepared speech, the heavy oak doors to the boardroom swung open. A flustered-looking assistant tried to step in front of us. "Ma'am, you cannot. This is a private." "It is quite all right," Camille Hart said, her voice cutting through the startled silence. She was not asking for permission. She was granting it. We walked in. Camille was in her sharpest black suit, her leather briefcase clicking against her leg. I was in a simple, dark blue maternity dress, my pregnancy undeniable, my hands resting on my belly, every head turned, the whispers died. Caden's phone, which had been on his lap, was now held up. But he was not filming, he was just staring, his mouth open. Vivian's face, which had been arranged in a mask of solemn, concerned matriarchy, froze. It was a perfect, beautiful mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Ethan looked like he was going to be physically ill. "Good morning," Camille said, her voice cheerfully lethal. She walked the length of the table, as if she owned the room. "Vivian, Ethan, Mr. Henderson, I am Camille Hart, of Hart Legal. I believe this meeting was called, regarding my client, Mila Reyes." She placed her briefcase on the table with a solid, definitive thud. "We just wanted to address your private family matters in person. We find it is so much more efficient that way." Before Vivian could find her voice, Camille opened her briefcase and began distributing neat, blue-bound documents, sliding them across the polished wood to Vivian, to Ethan, and to the key managers. "This is a courtesy copy," she said, "of an emergency motion filed with the Riverton Family Court this morning. It details my client's illegal eviction, her ongoing financial contributions, and a formal petition to partition the Cole Family Trust. I wanted to make sure you all had the same information." Mr. Henderson, the finance manager, picked it up, his face grim. He read the cover sheet, and his eyes widened. "Vivian," Camille said, "you were about to tell your team about Mila's condition, but I find, in these situations, a visual aid is so much more powerful." She nodded at me. I took the small, high-speed drive from my pocket and walked to the 80-inch television at the end of the room. I plugged it into the auxiliary port. "What do you think you are doing?" Vivian hissed, finally finding her voice. "I am providing context," I said. The screen flickered to life. The audio was crystal clear. My own phone's microphone having been just feet from Vivian, the room was forced to watch the baby-welcoming dinner. They saw the pot roast. They saw Caden's surreptitious filming. They saw Ethan, his hand on my pregnant belly, refusing to look at me. And then, the climax. They heard my trembling, recorded voice. "You want me to leave my home right now, while I am over 5 months pregnant with your son's child?" And Vivian's reply, echoing in her own boardroom, a cannon shot of arrogance. "This is not your home, Mila. This is a Cole house. And yes, you are leaving." Camille clicked the remote, and the screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute. It was beautiful. Mr. Henderson was the first to speak, his voice a horrified whisper. "Vivian, my God, the IRS, the city tax incentive. We have been claiming that house as a spousal primary residence for 2 years. This is fraud." "Yes, it is," Camille agreed, nodding. "Which brings me to Exhibit B." The screen lit up again. This time, it was not a video. It was a simple, brutal flowchart, prepared by Ben, the forensic accountant. It showed the Harborline logo. It showed my paycheck. It showed the deposit into the joint account, and it showed a thick red arrow, labeled Mandatory Capital Call, authorized by VRC. A siphoning thousands of dollars every month into a box labeled Cole Heritage Fund. "This," Camille announced to the room, "is a summary of how Vivian Cole has been systematically diverting my client's salary while pregnant into her own personal slush fund. She did this while simultaneously attempting to force my client to sign away her rights. The court calls this financial abuse. I call it theft." "This is slander," Vivian shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. "This is a lie. My son, Ethan, approved everything." "I am so glad you mentioned him," Camille said, her voice dangerously soft. She turned from Vivian. Her eyes found Ethan, who looked like a cornered, terrified animal. The image on the screen changed. It was the partnership agreement I had photographed, the signature page. "That is your signature, is it not, Mr. Cole?" Camille asked, her voice echoing in the room. "Authorizing the streamlining of your wife's assets. You see, this is where it gets complicated for you, because you are not just a witness in this, you are a defendant." She dropped a final, much thicker document in front of Ethan. "This is a draft of the civil complaint for damages, emotional distress, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You are named Ethan. You are just as liable as your mother. You helped her. You knew." Ethan made a small, wet, choking sound. He looked at his mother, his eyes full of terror and accusation. He was not her son. He was her fall guy. This was my moment. I stepped forward. Away from the screen, all eyes were on me. "I came to this family to build a life," I said, my voice strong, steady, and clear. "I came to have a son. I did not come here to be an unlisted, uncredited investor in your company." I looked at Vivian, her face a mask of mottled red and white. "You were right about one thing. This is about the Cole legacy. I will not have my son grow up in a family that lies. I will not have him hear stories about how his mother was unstable or had to be removed. He will not be poisoned by your stories. He will know the truth." I put my hand on my belly. "He will know his mother was not an outsider you could kick out like trash. He will know I helped pay for that house. So I am taking back my right to live in it, and I am taking back every single dollar you stole from me." "So here is what happens now," Camille said, stepping beside me. "A general addressing a defeated army. There is no negotiation. This is the offer, and it is on the table for exactly 10 minutes. 1. You will immediately sign a binding agreement granting Mila exclusive, sole occupancy of the Willow Lane residence. 2. You will wire the full amount identified by our accountant, plus a 40% premium for damages, distress, and legal fees, into a new protected trust for Mila and her son. It will be done by 5 p.m. today. 3. A permanent, court-ordered restraining order will be placed against Vivian Cole, barring any and all contact with Mila or the child. Unless initiated by Mila, you will not come near her, her home, or her son." "This is extortion," Vivian spat. "I will never." "You will," Camille interrupted, holding up her phone. "Because this video, this financial report, and a detailed complaint to the IRS are all in an email draft. It is scheduled to be sent to every major news outlet in Riverton and to the IRS regional director in 9 minutes. She placed the phone on the table. "You have 9 minutes, Vivian, to decide. Do you want to be a grandmother or a felon? Your entire company, your managers, your family, are all watching. Choose." The room was frozen. The managers were staring at Vivian, not as a leader, but as a liability. Ethan was shaking, his head in his hands, and Vivian Cole, for the first time in her life, was silent. She was trapped. She was beaten. I stood there, my hand on my belly, and I felt my son kick, a strong, steady reminder of what was real. I had my past in a box, and my future was right here. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let us share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.